we've been talking about VDI in the private cloud. Okay, so obviously private cloud is our vSphere environment, and with our ESXi and our servers on premise, and that's the aim of the competency unit. But obviously, the idea of the cloud is pretty common now. So you're probably doing another 2 subjects in the diploma level regarding cloud, Azure and AWS. So we're talking about how do we now extend our horizon into the public cloud, into Azure or into AWS, and obviously that's the topic today. Oh, so I noticed that this is still hidden, so I'll make sure it's available. So there's a video here. So the first thing we might do is actually just watch this video. All right, so we can use this. And let me make sure my sound is playing. So it's a short video, but I'm going to increase the speed a little bit. I'm not sure. Go away. This. Okay, I don't think I can actually. I can playback speed. I'm going to go to 1.5. Okay. So personally, I'll watch it at 2.0 at home. But if, I think 1.5 is reasonable. I'm just going to adjust the sound. Yeah. All right. So sorry guys, it's not ideal. So I'll get you guys to watch it yourself because I don't have the speakers. I thought it's going to come out with the speakers on the roof actually, but no good. All right. So basically, have a look at this for yourself. Okay. So this is talking about image management services in the cloud service features in the public cloud. So let's actually look at the PowerPoint instead and we'll get straight into it, okay? So that's an additional resource. So like I said, it's a short presentation and really not part of our assessment 1 at all, okay? Maybe a tiny bit of your assessment 2 for future improvements. So that's something you can talk about. So today we're talking about running Horizon in the cloud. So today our objective is to discuss Horizon cloud deployment concepts, Horizon cloud deployment requirements, and basically discuss what most people will be doing. So as much as we know there's benefits of actually having VDI or virtual desktop infrastructure, but the benefits of it is, if you've done any of the cloud subject, the benefit of the public cloud over the private on-premise cloud is pretty obvious, isn't it? So what do I mean by that? I mean that if you have your on-premise infrastructure, you own it. You pay for it. Okay, whether you use it 10%, 100%, you own it. You pay for it really upfront. And obviously, then you have to have staff to even forget about the IT stuff, even just having a premise, having a location to put your private cloud, having the electricity, the internet connection, the bandwidth you need to maintain that private cloud. Okay, let alone the cooling and the physical equipment like switches and routers that needs to be set up. So for all of those things needs maintenance as well. All of those things require you to pay something up front before you even get started. There's a big investment. So obviously we've been talking about having it in on-premise, and which has got all the benefits we've been talking about throughout the course. But obviously now, what's the next step? The next step is putting it in the actual cloud, the public cloud. Okay, all the advantages of the public cloud is that you pay for what you use. Let's say that only 10% of your users need it in the public cloud, then you only pay for the 10%. You don't pay for the 100% of the infrastructure in the cloud. Let's say that you only have the cloud and you don't have the private on-premise infrastructure at all, then that's also possible, okay? So let's have a look at the cloud Horizon deployments on-premise versus cloud. What have we done? We have been doing installing, configuring, and deploying Horizon on-premise delivery of applications and desktops. That's what we've been doing. And that's what the unit of competency that we are studying here requires. So in this method, we utilize the internal infrastructure hosted within our own data center. Okay, that data center is the physical service, the ESXi, the vCenter, any other resources we might have. But in the cloud, Horizon can also be deployed in a cloud environment, and There's a clue during installation. So when you actually install the connection server, you got this general, but if you actually click on it, you can see that there's AWS, there's Dell EMC, Azure, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud. So these are all possible public clouds that we could actually deploy connection server to. So therefore, it's always been designed with the thinking that this is going to be on-premise, but it can also be in the public cloud. So some deployment options. Obviously, we know the on-premise. Okay, that's pretty obvious in your own data center, your physical site, and having all your physical and virtual resources in place. There's not. We've talked about that all semester, so we don't need to talk about that too much. But there's also the cloud providers. There's the VMware cloud itself. There's VMware cloud on Amazon, which is the AWS. There's Azure VMware Solutions. There's the Oracle Cloud and the IBM Cloud. You can, just like any cloud, you can have what's called a hybrid model, hybrid deployment, which basically means you have some things on your own location and you have some things in the public cloud. Horizon can run across multiple platforms with centralized management via the Horizon Cloud Control Plane. Okay, so end users, what's the benefit to end users? They have access to apps and desktops from the cloud anywhere on any device. Okay, so we talked about how we can make them available to our internal on-premise stuff. But what's even easier? Put it in the public cloud and give them access. So people like AWS, people like Azure have, really rugged, high-end infrastructure, don't they? They have bandwidth that's going to exceed anything we can have on our premise. They're going to have servers and uptime and redundancy with their multiple layers of redundancy, in fact. Okay, availability zones, like within each availability zones, there might be multiple data centers, physical data centers. Even at the data center, there might be multiple layers of redundancy. Okay, so I might actually put another video on the resource things about the layers of redundancy at a data center. So that can be anything we can produce on site because they are world-class companies. They are providing a solution for world-class and as well as companies across the whole world. Okay, and what's even better is they can have point of presence. Have you heard of that term? Point of presence. So if we had on our premise, our point of presence is in Adelaide, isn't it? Do you think AWS has a location in US? Do they have location in Europe? They have a location in Asia and the rest of the world? Yes, definitely. So basically, it means that you can select all these points of presence, and let's say we have our Earthies confectionery. Now, instead of actually having just two sites, Adelaide and Elizabeth, now we're going to go into the US market like we talked about, right? Now we are in the US market. We might have a local team there, a local employees that's living in America. Now they're never going to be in Adelaide, but they're going to be there on that location because maybe we need some administration there. Maybe we need some salespeople there. Maybe we need some customer support people there. So if we do, that means they don't have to now set up a brand new workplace or office there. Of course, you can still have an office, but they can also be work from home anywhere and then connect with the fastest possible connection in their location to the point of presence of AWS or Azure or whatever in their location. So with this hybrid deployment, so basically the users can access the apps, desktop from anywhere on any device, which is what we've been talking about. IT administrators can have a unified management platform for resources across environments. So with this Horizon Cloud Control Pane, we can actually manage what's on premise and what's in the cloud. There's a comprehensive tools for monitoring and scaling infrastructures and desktops. So that's the best thing, isn't it? That if it's in the cloud, it can scale to whatever size we want. Let's say our business explodes and now in the US and Europe, our products are very popular. They explode in size and now we need more and more workers in those areas. Now we can actually increase the amount of cloud resources without having to buy the hardware, put the hardware in our data centers, install the hardware and all those kind of things. We can just allocate more resources in the cloud. So since 2021, there's been a license update. So there's now we've transitioned, well, VMware Horizon has transitioned to a subscription-based license. And so that's not unusual, okay? Subscription-based, what does that mean? That's like your Netflix. Instead of you owning the license for the software, you just pay a monthly fee and you can use it continuously forever until you stop paying, of course. Okay, so it's a bit like Office 365 as a subscription model. So, yep. Yeah. But you need to buy your own license. Yeah, absolutely. So, but part. Yeah, basically, you're like, yeah, definitely. There's in a couple more slides time, you'll see that there's some agreements with Microsoft Azure. So there's also an introduction of a universal license, basically, which means you can use it anywhere in the cloud or on premise. So basically, if we look at some of these license options, so I know this is the boring type, okay, the boring stuff, but it's obviously essential for when you when you actually need to look into the details of actually these products. So like I said, the universal license allows virtual desktops and apps on premise or in the cloud. So as the name suggests, universal, anywhere, okay? You can use this license anywhere. There's Horizon App Universal, which gives you app delivery on premise or in the cloud. So this is specific to apps. There's Horizon Subscription, which is what we just talked about. That subscription is only for the cloud, okay? And there's the app subscription, which is, again, the apps through the cloud. There's the Enterprise Edition term license, which access to enterprise features for 3 months or to a year a term, okay? So this is more for your on-premise. License type. There's name user license, which is assigned to a single user. Purchase required for each user. So basically, if you intend to have 200 users on your virtual desktop infrastructure, then you must have this license for each user, okay? Obviously, that's licensing. Yeah, it's a fact of life. Even Microsoft with the service has client access licenses, if you've ever heard of their cows. So concurrent user license based on the simultaneous usage, ideal for shift-based workforce. So obviously, if we said you had 200 users, maybe they don't work all at the same time. What if there's a day shift and a night shift? And day shift, you might have 150, night shift, you have 50. But you don't necessarily need this one. You could get the concurrent user license, which means how many users can be concurrently using your infrastructure. For example, for 100 users with only 50 active at any one time, you can purchase the 50 concurrent licenses, which only means that you'll be limited to 50 at any one time, okay? So that's good for the shift work. Okay, if we look at this, oops, I zoomed in too much. So licensing, so if we have a look at this side-by-side comparison, I'm not going to go through individually what it's all about, but you can have the single location license, which is your standard subscription, or the standard app subscription. That's where you have a standard thing. You could have the vSAN license, which is included as part of your universal, but that's only for on-premise. And you can actually have a vSphere and vCenter license. Obviously, we need that for on-premise deployments. In the cloud, we don't need that, because in the cloud, we're not using our vCenters or vSphere, we're using what's in the cloud. All right, so I'm not going to go through each one of these, but there's if we look at this, if we want to do it on-premise, which is what your assignment's probably going to talk about, you can get away with any of these on-premise locations. But for the end user, experience access, we've got this workspace, VMware Workspace ONE access with VMware verified multi-factor authentication. And obviously you need all of those, but you can have a look at this in detail if you need to, because there's no point me talking about each one of these in detail. Because like I said, we're here to learn generally about the licensing, but that's one of the things that's probably you need to sort of discuss with with your management, discuss with the in fact the sales rep from the company and see what's best for you. So we said that for the public cloud, we need this Horizon Cloud Control Plane. So what is it? It's basically a cloud-hosted service by VMware. It allows you for centralized management for your virtual desktop, your remote desktop sessions, and remote applications. And with this, we can manage pods. Okay, pods is basically a group of services and servers that's hosting your devices. So pods are located on-premise, in the cloud, or on Microsoft Azure. Remember, you were asking for that turnkey solution. So if you choose to use Horizon with Microsoft Azure, they have pretty much a solution for you. You just go tick, 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 and then you get that and start using it, okay? Then you use this Horizon control plane to actually manage it. It's accessible through the Horizon Universal Console, which is a browser-based. So basically, we go to this browser, we manage all of this Azure, the actual physical servers on-premise, potentially, and you might have some servers, some capacity in the cloud, a public cloud as well. Do you understand what this picture is talking about? So this is more like the hybrid solution where you have some on-premise, some on the cloud. So features of the control plane. There's universal brokering. So when they say brokering, it's just like an agent negotiating, okay? So basically, when someone tries to connect the universal brokering, now negotiates effectively where to send them. Where do they connect? Do they connect to your internal service for a virtual desktop instance, or do they go to the cloud? Okay, it optimizes the user experience by intelligent routing via a single URL, so routing to the cloud or routing to your on-premise. Simplifies global entitlements and reduces IT costs. That seems like a little bit of advertising. Okay, it doesn't say exactly how, but there's also with the control plane. We can also do image management. So remember, we have our Golden Master instant clone image. So centralized maintenance and distribution of desktop images. It streamlines updates, rollbacks, and replication across environments. So what does that mean? I have on-premise images. I have images in the cloud. And basically, this allows us to replicate those images so it's the same image, doesn't matter which platform. There's application management. So basically, you just have to package once and deploy anywhere with the VMware app volumes. Reduce the image counts and simplifies maintenance. So basically, the less times you have to do anything, the better. If you do it once, it's available both locations. Monitoring, which is very important. So like I said, in many of my subjects, 99% of the time when you have a job in these environments, you are not creating something new. You're not building something brand new from scratch. You're not deploying image or instant clone every day. You're not doing entitlements every day. You're not setting up SQL servers every day. What you're really doing is you've already done it. You built it. It's running well. But how can we make sure it's still running well? How do you make sure that it's meeting the requirements? How do you make sure that if there's a problem, that I can go see that problem and now fix that problem before it becomes a huge problem? How do I minimize downtime and maximize uptime? Okay, so monitoring is a real big part of that. So there's real-time health monitoring of sessions, desktops, and apps, and it includes a help desk service for rapid troubleshooting. Okay, so I'm not getting into details of this because obviously we're here to learn about the overview. We're not here to do everything individually at this point because today there's no worksheet. Okay, because there's no cloud. We're not going to send you to the cloud. Okay, so it's not part of your assignment one. It's not part of our practical work, but it's just something good to know of what is possible. There's also lifecycle management, which actually automates the installation, upgrades, and scaling. Simplifies onboarding for environments for Horizon Cloud on Azure. There's also the Horizon JMP, which stands for Just-in-Time Management Platform. So it integrates your desktop components, the OS, Horizon View with instant clone desktops, your applications, your app volumes, and user data and profiles with VMware DEM. And we do what's called a composite desktop model, which basically abstracts all components from the desktop machine. What does that mean? Abstracts, basically hides. Okay, so you don't know it's this plus this plus this. You know what you see is end result. Okay, so it builds a stateless virtual desktop environment on demand, a bit like what we talked about with the instant clone. On demand, it's building it. But it's based on the user entitlements, what they're able to use, have access to, where they're located, and the device they're using. Okay, so if they're, for example, sitting in the office cubicle on site, then the user entitlements might be sending the based on that location, it might be sending it to the on-site, on-premise. If they're on a hotel room, for example, on a laptop or iPad, they might be sent to the cloud platform. Delivers complete personalized desktop dynamically as the user logs on. So basically builds OS application and user data as they log on, and they get a personalized desktop because those free layers might be different to someone else's free layers. Definitely with the user data and profiles, that will be definitely different. So Horizon JMP orchestration components. So in order to have this, we need to have VMware Workspace 1. So basically that is gives you the centralized management for devices, desktops, and apps. Gives you secure access for users on any device. Could be your corporate issued devices, or could be your own devices, BYOD. It eliminates the need of any VPN, so you don't have to connect to your location through VPN. You just connect. Okay. Features: a single portal with a self-serve catalog. So basically, a bit like when we log in, we see everything's available, and then from there we can launch whatever we want. It's integration with app volumes for app delivery. There's also the VMware DEM, or Dynamic Environment Manager, which personalizes the virtual desktop by applying your user-specific settings and your data. So that's your profile and data profile. It dynamically configures the OS and applications using the Windows policies, a bit like what we talked about with the group policies. Example, app volume delivers the apps. The DEM applies the specific configuration like desktop image, the map drives, etc., etc. Okay. What about the instant clones? So what are the instant clones? So we know the instant clones already, but it basically quickly creates a virtual desktop machine from a gold image using VM fork technology. Okay, so we sort of exactly what we learned. The clone is provisioned from a running machine, not powered off. So basically, it's already running. You saw that it's kept there, isn't it? So it's already available, and then it's very quick for them to jump on. It's fast deployment. The clones are instantly available, and it's an efficient use of resource sharing. Shares memory and virtual hard disk with parent. Maintains a unique memory and delta disk changes. Okay, so that's so if you don't know what that means, it means that even though it's based on the parent, okay, the memory, the RAM, the virtual memory, and what they do to the disk are delta. Delta means difference. So therefore, it's our same idea of the snapshot versus the parent disk. Yeah, you know. So the snapshot virtual disk is different to that, right? The differences. So that's what I mean by the delta. Okay, delta changes. So have you heard of that term before, delta? Yeah. Mass physics? Yeah, exactly. So in physics especially, they might see delta speed. Yeah, the difference between speed. Yeah, geometry. Geometry is a little bit different. Geometry is more like the angles, right? You use that Greek alphabet. But the general term for delta is the difference. If you ever hear that in science or anything like that, it's talking about the difference. What app volumes? So we talked about this before, but same idea. It abstracts or hides applications from the OS using a virtual hard disk file or VHD, VMDK, VMware, or VHD, Hyper-V. Applications are packaged as virtual containers and delivered on demand. There's the SAM, which is the Simplified Application Management, which replaces the app stack with lifecycle management for apps. So some of these things are specific to the cloud, okay? There's also write-over volumes, which allows users to install their own applications, attach an empty virtual disk to the user installed apps, and this disk follows the user across virtual desktops. Okay, so again, this is something that we didn't do now in our practical work, but something that requires where is it? We need what's a Horizon Enterprise? We need Horizon Enterprise for local premise application of it. Okay, so let's go back here. So some benefits is that it enables seamless application delivery to and user customization. Okay, so Horizon Image Management Services. Sometimes the challenge is that the composite desktop model requires user profile, applications, and operating system. That's how it's built up, right? Operating system, applications, then the user settings and data. OS image management is critical for security, updates, and version control. So that's the golden master image that we're talking about. Obviously, we create it once, but then it gets out of date really fast, doesn't it? Because it's static at that point in time. So complexity increases with virtual machines spread across multiple platforms when you have a hybrid. So you might have some on-premise, some in the cloud, but we already talked about that, isn't it? The solution is the image management services, which actually centrally manages and distributes the OS images across Horizon pods. If that pod might be on-premise, the pod might be in the cloud, it just centrally manages it. Automates tasks such as image replication. So we create it on-premise, we use it, we update it, then that is replicated into the cloud as well. So updating virtual desktop pools, so automates tasks like updating virtual desktop pools or server farms. And some key features include the marker tags, which are a unique label for identifying the image use case. So basically description. Okay. Supports multiple use cases per image, so you could possibly use it for sales, but also production, or maybe multiple other things. It fleets at scale. What does that mean? That means that you can deploy images really quickly and really can scale up. Update pools using markers from a single console. Integrates with vCenter. So we've seen that already. Simple replication and management through vCenter. And if we look at this, so that's the YouTube video that you can watch as well. But basically, we have this management console that's on premise. We have an image import. We assign marker pools to the pool. So assign markers to the pool, so descriptions. And image is converted to OVA. So if you remember from our other subject, that's an open virtualization application. Well, Oracle, so this .VOVA, it's a format. No, it's for all virtualization. Yeah, so OVA is an open virtualization application. Yeah. You might have heard us use a OVF or something like that. So that's the open virtualization format. But yeah, so it's open. All right, it might be used by Oracle as well. It's also used by Hyper-V. It's also used by VMware vSphere, but it's a way of actually transporting virtual machines between all of those different platforms. And that's why we use it here. Because when we put it onto the cloud, do you know exactly what the cloud is using? Do you? Do you know what Azure is using as their platform? Do you know what Microsoft, AWS? Exactly. So that's why this OVA is used. It's standard. Yeah, it's a open virtualization. Yeah. So it copies to other vCenters via the content library and then converts back to the template. So this is a way of getting it to there. And then we can update the image as we need to, because that's, like I said, once you create it, it's out of date. So you have to update it from time to time, and then we publish it, and basically we publish it to make it available. So watch this YouTube video for a more detailed explanation. So Horizon brokering. So connection broker, remember what I said about brokering is sort of, it makes a connection. It sort of negotiates where do we send you, how do we get you to get this service. So connection broker options in the cloud control plane. There's different broker types. There's a universal broker, which supports hybrid cloud environments. So if you've got some on-premise, some in the cloud. There's a single pod broker, which is based for what we talked about with the Azure environment. And obviously, if you have a hybrid cloud situation, we can use the VMware SDDC, which uses a universal broker for the high horizon pods. With the Microsoft Azure, we use the single pod broker for the Horizon Cloud pods. So you can see that there's a big link with Azure. It's talking more about Azure than any of the other platforms. It's not saying that you should use Azure. It's just saying that there's actually a consideration already there. Okay. So important considerations. Broker selection is permanent and irreversible. So if you choose one option, you cannot change afterwards. Okay. So it's irreversible across all Horizon pods in the tenant. With universal broker, end user assignments must come from one pod type only, Horizon pod or the cloud pod. So here we go. So you're sitting at home, you're using your end device, wherever that may be. This is just a computer, but it could be anything. You go and connect, and then the Horizon control plane universal broker now gets to send you somewhere. Okay, it could be on pod 1, which might be in the on-premise. It could be pod 2, which is in the cloud, Azure, or it depends on what this third one is. I don't know. Okay, but it could send you to any one of those things depending on where you are, who you are, and what you have entitlements for. So the Horizon Cloud Connector, what is it? It's a virtual machine, OVF, so Open Virtualization Format, deployed in vSphere. It certifies entitlements to the Horizon Cloud Service. Basically saying, yes, this guy is definitely entitled to this. It's sort of like stamps. Stamps to say, yes, I agree, or yes, I have checked him out. He has these entitlements. Enables access to cloud services via the Horizon Cloud plane, control plane. And the key roles is to activate subscription-based licenses for Horizon pods. Obviously, it's almost how do they get their money, right? So if they check and it allows you to go through, it means that you've activated it. Provides health monitoring and troubleshooting via the Horizon Cloud Service Console. So it shows you the if it's healthy or not, and obviously gives you some clues on how to troubleshoot. Deployment details required for each Horizon pod using a subscription license. So if you have a pod that you chose the subscription license, you must have this cloud connector. Okay. Each pod needs a dedicated cloud connector, and multiple pods can connect to a single Horizon Cloud Service account, but they still need a cloud connector per pod. So here, Horizon Cloud on Azure. Common question: why choose Horizon on Azure over Azure Virtual Desktop? So don't forget, Horizon is just one option. Okay, so even though our whole subject's about Horizon, don't ever forget there's always options. Okay, in your assignment, you're told there's a comparison, there's a file you look at, which is a comparison between. If we look at your assessments, you're given this document to look at, which is a Citrix versus Horizon comparison. Okay, it's 2021. That's relevant to what we're talking about here. It talks about what they can do, what hypervisors they can use, etc., and it's a detailed comparison. So don't ever think that you always must choose what we learn in class. And that's not the point of TAFE here, okay? The point of TAFE is not to make you do everything we do. It's to teach you the general information as well as the specific for one technology, because we can't teach everything. But you, as an individual with a brain, we're not training robots, we're training people who can think. And that's why we have so many discussions, and maybe like even for you to troubleshoot things and to think about things, is for you to make an informed decision. Okay, so why choose Horizon on Azure over Azure Virtual Desktop? Because that's provided by Azure themselves. The key advantage is that VMware has a partnership with Microsoft. That's what I'm alluding to before, right? So it enhances cloud desktop features and functionality. So there's a focus area, it gives you seamless integration of Horizon with the Azure infrastructure. So obviously Azure VD or virtual desktops is in Azure. That's public cloud, isn't it? They can't extend that to the private cloud, but Horizon can. And Horizon with Azure partnership can take your on-premise and the cloud and we'll make them work together. Okay, that gives you a unified management. So basically, if you had Azure VD, you would have Azure management. And then if you wanted it on-premise, then you have Horizon or something else here. And then you do it here for cloud and you do it here for your on-premise, then you can see how that becomes messy, right? How does someone transition from here to here seamlessly? So that's the whole point of using Horizon on Azure as opposed to Azure AVD. Obviously, if your solution, if your use case, as they call it, if your requirements are that it's all only in the cloud, then it's a different situation. It's a different situation than if you had a hybrid choice. But because our subject and our unit of assessment or unit of competency requires our virtual desktop environment on the premise, which is what the competency is written for, that's why we've chosen to use Horizon as the technology to teach it. Okay. So if we look at this is your on-premise, Azure Virtual Desktop, so AVD. It gives you, gives you all of these things. And I'm not going to go through each one of these, but but if we look at Horizon, it actually uses the multi-cloud control plane, and it supports all of these things across on Azure. But also the key thing is probably that it can also be used to manage your on-premise stuff. Okay, so which brings us to the end of the presentation. So today we've talked about deployment methods of running Horizon in the cloud. We talked about the different licensing, specifically the subscription-based license models and features. And we talked about some of the key components of cloud-based Horizon deployment and talked about some insights or design considerations for migrating to the cloud. So like I said, what's the key takeaways? Key takeaways is that for your assignment 2, I think there's a future improvement area. So I would suspect that you would want to include the public cloud as part of that future improvements, okay?